Good morning, Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with a look at Hurricane Sandy for you on Hurricane and Hurricane HD. Some interesting things going on with Sandy, not purely tropical anymore, definitely undergoing a transition into what we call an asymmetrical warm core system, and I think that makes sense. You know what symmetrical is. If something has good symmetry, it's very obvious. Well, Sandy has become much more asymmetrical in nature, where a lot of the energy is on one side of the storm. Over here it's nice and warm with the convection that's going off, generated by the warmth of the ocean. And then you also have some baroclinic forces going on in here with the energy associated with an upper level low and trough sitting near Cuba. And we can see that a lot better on the upper level wind chart here. There's a trough of low pressure here, upper level energy in the atmosphere, adding some energy to Sandy, which is also still generating its own convective activity, which is that warm core that I'm talking about. But none of this really matters. We're going to talk about why in just a minute. I don't want you to focus too much on the meteorology, even though it's fascinating to some. There's more important things to discuss. Here's, again, a look at that structure that for the most part of its life, Sandy was symmetrical warm core, now going to asymmetrical but still warm core. And that's important because that means that the center is warmer than the outside environment, and generally speaking, the energy that it's putting out, that convective activity, is driven by the warmth of the ocean rather than temperature and energy being injected into it by the jet stream or an upper level low. It is starting to get mixed up with that, but still a hurricane. And the bottom line, if we go back to the first satellite shot there, you see this. It's a huge weather system with 80-mile-per-hour winds out here, 70-mile-an-hour winds, 60-mile-an-hour winds, you name it. It is really churning up the ocean, and it's going to get stronger as it gets north and rides the Gulf Stream. We're going to take a look at that. So here's the forecast track, paralleling Florida today, then turning northeast, and then it'll hook back in towards the mid-Atlantic and northeast as a high-pressure area over the Atlantic blocks it here, and a big trough digs into its west, a negatively tilted trough, and that pinwheels it back in towards the coast. It just cannot escape. Very, very, very rare meteorological phenomenon, and something that is going to leave a lot of people, I think, stunned when they see the damage that this causes. This is a great sea surface temperature map. You can clearly see the outline of the Gulf Stream right here. Believe it or not, Sandy is going to basically ride the Gulf Stream as it comes up east of Florida, well east of Cape Hatteras, significantly enough anyway, and then makes that turn back towards the coast, leaving the wall of the Gulf Stream only for maybe a day, if that, over cooler water. And the really cold water is right up against the coastline, so it's not going to have a lot of time to weaken. And with that enormous circulation, it's just going to continue to pull very warm, unstable air from the Atlantic into that huge circulation and drive the water towards the coastline. Speaking of that, and this is what I want people to focus on, don't worry about what it is, meteorologically, structurally, etc. That is not as important at all, even though it is interesting to a lot of people. We need to focus on the effects. First of all, storm surge potential all along the coast here, from battering waves, the increase in the sea height along the coast because of the onshore flow, a very big problem. And depending on where Sandy makes the turn and comes into the coast, will determine what area that onshore flow is the worst and where the storm surge will be. Typically, it is to the east or the right-hand side of the track. So if we bring Sandy in like this, then areas all along Jersey's coast up towards Long Island could get a substantial storm surge up here. In the coming days, we will start to get storm surge products from the National Hurricane Center, and I will talk about that in a video blog that I'll be doing on the road, because I'm going to be out in this with with Jesse Bass, my colleague from Southeast Virginia, and we will continue to provide these video blogs to you, and you can actually, we'll go over what the storm surge threat is going to be. That information hasn't come out yet. They run what's called a slosh model for sea, lake, and overland surge from hurricanes, and they get an idea of what the expected above ground inundation of the water will be, and that hasn't happened yet. But needless to say, if Sandy were to come in down here, you could push a huge surge right up into Delaware Bay. You'd also have a bad surge, an Atlantic surge here coming in to Atlantic City, devastating the barrier islands down here. You name it, the problems are going to be there. Wind will knock trees down, power outages. I'm thinking, we've got some big cities in here. Philadelphia, Wilmington, Delaware, down to D.C., Baltimore, farther to the southwest, all the way up along this I-95 corridor. We are looking at millions of people without power. That's coming guaranteed. So you need to be ready for this. Then you've got the heavy rain, the storm surge along the coast, and the possibility of severe thunderstorms as the convective activity transitions to more like what we would see with a mid-latitude storm, where we would have the potential for some downburst winds, very strong, maybe even tornadic situations. This is going to be a meteorological phenomenon, and even though that's the case, the effects are going to be very much like a hurricane, but a little colder than you would normally see. Very wild situation for sure. Right now, looking at the radar, a little bit of a convergent zone up here along the Gulf Stream as that air is coming around Sandy. Showers still fairly well offshore of the Carolinas. Most of the heaviest rain in the core of that rain sitting off of Florida. A few scattered showers along the I-95 region into southeast Florida, but that's about it. So that's a look at Sandy for now. The main thing, it's going under this transitional phase. It'll probably intensify, but different forces will make it do so. But that bottom line that you need to remember, it won't matter what it is structurally, it's going to cause hurricane conditions over a large area, producing a substantial storm surge right along the coast, capable of damaging property and taking lives for people who are foolish. And then you've got the wind issues along the coast and inland as well. A very disruptive event coming up, no matter what the structure is. That's the key here. All right? Again, I will be posting videos once I'm on the road later today and throughout the next several days, and those will go into Hurricane and Hurricane HD. We also have an app of our own at hurricanetrack.com, aptly named Hurricane Track, all one word. Check that out if you get a chance. That will have live weather data and webcam images and even more video blogs posted to Hurricane Track. So the pair, Hurricane HD, either one of those, either for iPad or iPhone, and Hurricane Track, you cannot find a better pairing of hurricane information and tracking, especially with the boots on the ground info that Hurricane Track will provide. Go to the App Store and get Hurricane Track if you get a chance, and you will have the two best tools available in all of the app world. Alright? Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something from this, and if you're in the path, I hope you're preparing and taking this seriously. Again, I am Mark Sudduth, hurricanetrack.com. Always a privilege and a pleasure, both, to do these videos for you on Hurricane and Hurricane HD. I will have much more coverage to come.